This is the Jerusalem Post Zoomcast, Jpost one-on-one.
Hello, and welcome to the Jerusalem Post Zoomcast. I'm Gil Hoffman, the chief political correspondent and analyst of the Jerusalem Post, and I'm honored to have with us as our special guest Jeremy Saltan, who is a candidate with the Yamina party of Naftali Bennett in the March 23rd election. Thank you for coming, Jeremy.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Gil.
Pleasure to be with you too, Jeremy. So let's first start by looking back at that election. When it all started, before Gideon Sa'ar entered the fray, the Yamina party was polling at more than 20 seats. You ended up with only 7. What went wrong, Jeremy?
Well, it always depends on where is going to be your point of reference and your perspective. Let's remember that we started with just 3 seats in this Knesset after Smotrich decided, of course, to split off and go off on his own. So from that perspective, you can see that we increased our strength from 3 to 7. In terms of the polls that had us in the low 20s quite a few months ago, as you pointed out, that was before another party went into the race, which was Gideon Sa'ar. And instead of the last Knesset, which had 8 different factions entering the Knesset, which is a historic low in terms of the number of factions to enter the Knesset, this time we have 13. And although that is not the highest, certainly if you're looking at the fact that since we've raised the threshold to 4 seats, we've never had a situation where we've had 13 parties with 4 seats or more. So the pie has been divided very differently this time. And of course, there are only 2 parties that made double digits.
Okay, but still, 7, huh?
Who doesn't want to get more mandates, Gil? Everyone wants to get more mandates. You end up working with what the Israeli people give you.
Okay, so with those 7 mandates, on Monday, the representatives of your Yamina party, Matan Kahana and Ayelet Shaked, arrived there at the president's residence. I was there. They took a long time getting out of their cars. It seemed like they were still thinking about what to say until the very last minute. And they got to the president and said, Naftali Bennett. Why? Why did they say that Naftali Bennett should form a government with only 7 seats?
So there are 3 reasons why it was that we made that decision. The first reason is the easiest, and that is because that's what we said we were going to do. Throughout the campaign, and I answered this question when you asked it, and I believe that Naftali did as well. You interviewed him a few times during the election campaign season. We said, regardless of the amount of seats we get, even if it's in the single digit, we are going to go ahead and recommend Naftali Bennett for prime minister. The entire fight of the Bibi camp and the anti-Bibi camp, we said that we were not going to go ahead and nominate Lapid. We said we were not going to go ahead and nominate Netanyahu, and we went ahead and we nominated Bennett as we said we would. The second reason of why we decided to do that is because we really think that he is the person that is most fitted to go ahead and most suited to fill the role of prime minister at this time in terms of being able to heal that nation. And a big part of that is, of course, because he was not part of either bloc, and if you will, can be sort of a compromise candidate in this type of situation. And the third reason is the fact, and as you know, and it's been reported, Naftali Bennett had a 3-hour meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday. He had a 2.5-hour meeting with Yair Lapid on Saturday night. It was very clear that neither one of them would get 61 nominations, and therefore it was clear that neither of them would be able to go ahead and form a government. And we felt that Naftali is the only one that actually has a chance. He has the best chance to go ahead and form a government, and that's why we went ahead and ultimately decided to nominate him.
That's kind of counterintuitive, Jeremy, because I heard one Naftali Bennett say during the campaign that you can't form a government unless you have 16 seats. You were number 16, so maybe he was saying that for you. Then I heard him say 15. I heard him say 12 at one point. Got to get that Russian vote, get a Russian immigrant at number 10, at 12. Then it went down to 10. He said on a television show, trying to form a government with less than 10 seats is undemocratic. So why would it be easier to form a government with 7 seats than Netanyahu's 30 or 29, depending on how you count the Likud seats?
So, what the president said, and he got a lot of criticism for this, but he said that instead of looking at the most nominations, he was going to look at who he felt had the best chance to be able to go ahead and form the government. And that's why, besides asking each party who it was that they were nominating, he was asking also who were they disqualifying. And if you go ahead and you look at the 3 candidates that ended up getting both nominations as well as disqualifications, so we saw very clearly that both Netanyahu and Lapid got just about as many disqualifications as they got nominations, whereas Bennett had the least amount of disqualifications between the 3 candidates. And it's true, he was last place there in terms of the nominations he got, with only our party going ahead and choosing him. However, the point is that even if it is not an ideal situation to see the premiership with a party of just 7 seats, going to a 5th election is less ideal than going ahead and ultimately trying to go ahead and find, again, a compromise candidate. And we're in this situation where Bibi is not able to get to 61, unfortunately, and Lapid is not able to get to 61, unfortunately. We're in a situation where we're the only country around the globe that did not pass a 2020 budget. We've not passed a 2021 budget yet. We're already in April, and we're going forward without knowledge of when that's going to happen. We're getting pretty close to needing to pass a 2022 budget. We're dealing with the situation, the economic fallout of Corona. We need to see a recovery, and we need to see a government. So again, if we're in a situation where the other 2 candidates cannot be able to form a government, you have a guy who is in a 3rd bloc who wasn't part of the only Netanyahu or anybody but Netanyahu bloc. And we thought, when it came to the president's residence, based on the outline that he said, that he wanted to give the mandate to the person who had the best chance to form a coalition. We felt very strongly that that person was Naftali Bennett. And because of the 3 reasons that I said, we went ahead and we did that.
Okay, so now we've made our way from the past to the present. And so yesterday, Naftali Bennett made a speech that was responding to the decision of President Reuven Rivlin to give Prime Minister Netanyahu the first mandate to form a government. And there have been a lot of people trying to decipher that speech because it had a lot of contradictions there. What is the present goal of Naftali Bennett? Is he trying for real to help Netanyahu form a government?
What Bennett said, and I think this is an important message, and perhaps it wasn't understood by the other parties because he was speaking also to them, is that we have to do whatever we can to be able to go ahead and form a government. What Bennett was saying is that Yamina is not going to be the reason that we go to a 5th election. We're happy to sit with Netanyahu in goodwill and try to figure out what can be done. Unfortunately, based on the disqualifications that we saw that came out of the president's residence, we are just not confident that that's going to work, but we're going to do what we can from our side to be able to move us towards a government. Now, obviously, we think that if we had the mandate, that would have been something that would have been more beneficial. Had Lapid got the mandate, we would have sat down with him. Just as I said, Bennett sat down with both Netanyahu and Lapid before the president had made his decision. We're hopeful that something comes out of this. And that's what he was trying to convey yesterday.
This being these 27 days that Netanyahu has left to form a government. How hard is Naftali Bennett going to try to help Bibi do that?
He's going to try to do whatever is in his power. Let's remember, a lot of things are not in his power. Smotrich does not like Naftali Bennett very much. I think that's a safe thing to say, based on everything that's come out both on the record and off the record. And if you look at the fact that Gideon Sa'ar is very strong with his position, I just don't think there's a lot. I know a lot of people are saying either to Bennett, you convince Smotrich to sit with Mansour Abbas, or you convinced Bennett to get Gidon Sar to sit with Bibi. In the end, Gidon Sar, I don't think is going to budge here. I don't think Bezalel Smotrich is going to budge here. And I'm not so convinced that, as Netanyahu thinks he'll be able to do, that they will go ahead and find all of these refugees, all of these people that they want to pick off from other parties, as Netanyahu has successfully been able to do in the past. I think when compiling lists, this was very high in the priorities of each party leader to make sure they would not have people who would potentially go ahead and take the mandate that was given to them by their voters and then move over to a different party. But Bennett's going to do what he can. But I think expectations should be set where they're realistic. And let's also remember the mandate is with Netanyahu. It's on Netanyahu to go ahead and make these decisions, to make these calls. It's on him to be able to convince everybody. The president shows him, not Naftali Bennett. And it's on Netanyahu to be able to try to figure out, again, whether he's going to do that with Smotrich, with Gidon Sar, or with defectors, if he's able to go ahead and move forward in any direction of a government.
Okay, so before we move on to what could happen in 27 days in what you've described as quite a likely event that Netanyahu will fail to form a government, let's try just one other option before we get there, which is the Netanyahu for president option. Let's explain that first. Yariv Levin, the Knesset speaker, could announce right now that elections will be held in 3 weeks for president. During that time, the law can be changed to make that election be not secret ballot as it has been. So everybody can look and see. Netanyahu can announce that he is running for president. And meanwhile, the Likud can hold a snap primary for his successor. And that successor would be able to, because no one would really rule that successor out, would be able to build a coalition of Likud, Yamina, Shas, United Torah Judaism, the Religious Zionist Party, Blue and White, and Yisrael Beitenu, of 80 members of Knesset to have ready when the president gives his second mandate. What do you think about that possibility, Jeremy Saltan?
Well, I think we've all known that's been one of the possibilities that's been talked about already for a few years. This is something that started in the various corridors. It's something that's obviously being talked about unofficially. I would be very, very surprised to see Netanyahu go ahead and move forward with that. So putting that question to me is not the same as putting it to the president. Sorry, to the prime minister. I'm sure if you ask President Rivlin, that'll be the last person he would want to see succeed him to the presidency. But in terms of time frame, let's just realize where we are now. The Knesset has already been inaugurated, it started yesterday. Any MK that wants to go ahead now and run for president needs to get 10 signatures. I know already some of our MKs have been approached by various candidates. So I would say that if someone does want to see this happen, they're already racing against the clock. Also, Yariv Levin needs to make a decision of when he's going to hold the election for president. The latest he can do it, I believe, is the first week of June. Correct. So, he does not have a lot of time either in terms of setting the date, in terms of candidates who are already announced for presidency. They're around trying to get MKs to support them and sign on their nomination papers. So I think this will play itself out. And I think just in terms of the timeline, it does not seem like something that would end up happening just because of the mechanics of what's involved from a technical perspective. Okay,
so we've been dismissing the various possibilities one by one. And so that leaves us with the possibility that Yair Lapid said in a speech on Monday night. He said that he told Naftali Bennett that Bennett could go first in a rotation with him in the prime minister's office. So take me through that possibility. May 4th, the mandate of Netanyahu will end, and then the president will hold another round of consultations, knowing full well that while technically he can not necessarily give out a second mandate and he can say, Knesset, you do it, he knows that he technically can't do that because the Knesset cannot form a minority government, which might be the only government possibly be formed during that time. So it has to come from the president. So let's say on May 5th or 6th, that the president then gives the mandate to Naftali Bennett. Then what happens? What kind of government does he try to build?
So obviously, we have to say there is a possible 14-day extension that maybe Netanyahu would get. I don't think it's very likely, but just technically that's there. As you said, also Rivlin can either have a second round of consultations, or he can decide to give the second mandate, or he can give it back to the Knesset. What we asked for, if you noted, was, and Shaked and Kahana both asked for this, that he hold a second round of consultations. If now we're in a situation where Netanyahu fails in the first mandate, the second mandate cannot be given to him. It must be given to one of the other candidates. And I believe that if you were to ask those parties that chose Netanyahu in the first round, where they have to choose between Lapid and Bennett for who should be able to get the mandate, that most likely every single one of the parties that chose Netanyahu would then be choosing Bennett in that type of situation. Perhaps one of the parties that abstained would also choose Bennett in that type of situation. So I think that if we do go to a second mandate, which the president is not clear that he wants to do, I think he should. If we do go to a second mandate, if we do go to a second round of consultations, we could find ourselves in a place where Bennett gets the mandate. Obviously, the ones that choose to nominate him would be the first ones that you would go ahead and sit with. And as I said, throughout this campaign, we made sure not to be part of either bloc. Based on the parties that would go ahead and nominate us, we would sit with them first and see what we could do in terms of being able to go ahead and form a stable government, because that's really, again, what we would want to see. But as I said before, we have to recognize right now Netanyahu does have the mandate, and we shouldn't be jumping ahead.
Yes,
we should be, but again, in that future scenario, if he got it, we would talk with whoever it was that would nominate him to be the next prime minister.
Every party would nominate him except for the ones that rule him out. If Yair Lapid is nominating him, there's no other candidate. There are a total of 11 members in the current Knesset who could potentially rule him out, they being the 10 members of Knesset from Arab parties and one member of Knesset in Meretz named Yair Golan. The other 100 and I'm not so good at math, 109 members of Knesset can all be there for him. Who are you going to pick out of those?
So again, we do have to recognize what Ohana said to the president is in that event they would abstain, meaning they would not go ahead and nominate anybody in the second round. Yeah, so I'm saying I think you can take Likud out of that as well, not just Golan and their parties. But like I said, we'd have to see who it would be that would actually recommend us. We've made it very clear that we believe that a majority of the countries on the right, if I'm going to bring you back to Naftali's speech from yesterday, and that needs to be reflected in the next government. And I understand that there are various people that would love to see a government with Bennett and the left. But what we're saying here is that you need to also be able to have the right in that sort of government. But again, with all that being said, we do need to see a government. And after the situation of a possible second mandate, as you pointed out, there is the possibility of a third mandate if someone could get 61 signatures, which again is very, very difficult, which is why I do think the president should at least give someone else a chance in the second mandate and not be the first president to ever not go for a second choice and just, if you will, punt, on third and long, just punt it to the other team and say good luck and finish out his term, in that fashion. But assuming the second mandate would not work, I would assume that the dynamic within the 61 signature period before the third mandate would be something that would be very unpredictable. And it would be very, very difficult to imagine the various scenarios that would be possible. But again, we're really jumping the gun when we're talking about all of these potential scenarios. Right now, we're committed to speak with who has the mandate at the current point. And we're asking that the president keep in mind, if he chooses not to extend the mandate, that he should have a second mandate. And
okay, so the last question, Jeremy, before I let you go and our readers go, is what kind of prime minister would Naftali Bennett be?
He would be the prime minister of all Israelis. What we've always said throughout this entire campaign is that we believe we need to do what's best for Israel. That's what Naftali said also after we got the election results on election night, when I was up on stage with him at our victory party at the end of the campaign. What we're going to do is make sure that we get the economy running again. What we're going to do is pass state budgets. What we're going to do is make sure that the government actually works. That's the most important thing. I believe that a majority of Israelis, right or left, secular or religious, Jew or Arab, or whatever other way you want to go ahead and divide the Israeli population, what people want to see is a government that works and someone who actually cares about them, that is going to do the work every morning, afternoon, evening, and night for the Israeli citizen. And that would be our commitment should we get the mandate and should we be able to go ahead and actually successfully form a government.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeremy Saltan, for being a part of the Jerusalem Post Zoomcast. And thank you to our viewers for being a part of this as well.
Thanks, Gil.